such as books and cushions. This will be a Hatha Yoga class as usual, and spark with some little extras. So if you didn't hear or get it at the beginning, maybe a block could be useful to have by the side of the mat. Potentially also some cushioning for the knees or folded blankets. So once you've got all of this, it might be lovely to just lie yourself down onto the backs to begin with. And a suggestion for this morning to maybe find your spot first, no need to rush there, but it could be lovely to keep the knees bent for the beginning of the practice, simply because of de-stressing through the torso, hip flexors, and your back. It's no obligation, as usual. Choice is up to you, because there could be reasons why this might be uncomfortable for you. So please, taking care of yourself as usual for most. And if there's anything new within your body or your mind that currently challenges you, do take care of that as well, as you allow yourself that little bit of grace to move through the practice today. Saying all of this, I would like to draw your awareness today to the opposites. And while you're lying there at this very moment, there is already opposites happening. We don't need to do anything. The only thing is that we tend to look at the good aspects of everything a lot and kind of push the other aspects to the side. So for now, let's make it simple. You're lying here. You might have chosen to close your eyes. And there's the opposite of a sturdy, supportive ground underneath you. Cherishing maybe that is the case. And observing the opposite, most likely over the front of the body, the space in which you are, the air that touches you. And maybe creating an inner feeling of gratitude for those two opposites, while they both combine to provide you with a safe space for your practice today. Allowing yourself then to turn the awareness to the breath and the obvious opposites here, the in-breath and the out-breath. While there is an in and out breath, and the quality of the breath is different, so a slightly cooler breath on the in-breath and a warmer on the out-breath. You might also take a note that it's not always just the opposites. With the breath, there's a little space in between, a space between the in-breath and the out-breath. Allow yourself, if it's right for you, to explore that more deeply with the practice of Viloma Pranayama or breathwork. It's translated into against the grain. If any of the parts of this breath seem unsuitable for you and today and now is enough, just leave these parts out, and if none of that works today, practice deep abdominal breathing instead. It will be a 3-part breath in. We're just continuing the in-breath into different parts of the body. And it will be a pause in the middle. So once you're filled with breath, and then there's a long out breath, and that goes against the grain that goes right from the top down to the bottom. So let's practice that. Breathing into your belly, 3, 2, 1. Lower ribs, 3, 2, 1. Collarbones, 3, 2, 1. Holding your breath, containing it within the body. And breathing out from the top for 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And inhaling to the belly again for 3, 2, 1. Lower ribs, 3, 2, 1. Collarbones, 3, 2, 1. Holding the breath. Locking it into the body and exhaling from the top for 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now let your breath just be gently flowing in and out. Maybe notice how you experience the opposites of the breathing practice or pranayama. We'll go again, another round of 2. Breathing into the belly, 3, 2, 1. Lower ribs, 3, 2, 1. Collarbones, 3, 2, 1. Pausing, holding the breath. Exhaling from the top for 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Raising into the belly, 3, 2, 1. Lower ribs, 3, 2, 1. Collarbones, 3, 2, 1. Hold the breath. And exhaling from the top for 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And resting the breath again. Take this time to observe yourself. Notice what is going on for you. Whether any change was created. And oftentimes, if there was change created, it would lean towards the opposites there too. I would ask you then to gently deepen the breath, finding that breathing pattern that you might like to take into the practice today. So slow breath in and out of the nose. And then as you might have your feet on the ground, if there's anything underneath your body, please remove that as we begin to move. Bringing your right knee over your chest, embracing the right knee and squeezing it in towards the chest. Take a note how that feels. Keeping your knee hugged in tightly, you might like to extend your left leg out. If you do, try slowly. And if available, please flex the foot quite strongly. Keeping your right knee squeezed in, you might notice that there's things happening on the opposite leg. With an out breath, the option of lifting your nose to the knee. Then releasing back down onto the floor. Opposite hand takes a hold of the kneecap. The right arm folds gently away from the body. And we guide the knee across the body on an out breath. Your main focus here is to keep your shoulders on the ground. However far or not so far this knee might go. As your shoulders might be grounded, you can then also choose to look over to either side. A deep, full breath in. And a long, slow breath out. Then starting to roll onto the back, keeping your right foot stepped down and pushing into the right foot so that you're rolling onto the left side of the body. While I'm still limited here with my left arm, you might not be. So you could extend both arms over the head and move your arms as well as your legs a little bit behind you, creating a side-lying banana shape or a back bend, as you could breathe in here and push the hips forward. Then take your upper arm and circle it around, maybe bending your top knee. If it's within reach, you might take a hold of the right foot, bringing your knees back together. And if the foot is out of reach, you might still bend the knee and touch the knees together. The option here, if you're holding onto the foot, is to bring the foot into the hand while you're still moving your hips forward. For those of you not holding on, you might bring your knee a little bit backwards while the hips are pushing forward. Taking a couple of deep breaths here to hold. When you completed your breaths, first of all, letting go of the leg. Reaching your arm back up over the head for another big banana stretch. And then flopping onto the back like jelly on a plate. Let yourself just simply lie here, maybe a bit out of alignment, just as you fell to the floor. Noticing the side that we've used already and the side that might feel a little bit shorter all of a sudden. Then stepping both feet back down for the same starting point. You might use this time here to realign your body on the mat. Bringing your left knee over the chest and taking a hold, hugging the knee in tightly. Whether you hold onto the knee or more towards the shin is up to you. While you keep your knee hugged in tightly, you might explore extending the right leg out. Here, if you do, please keep a flexion in the foot if that's available. And hug the knee in even more tightly. And out breaths where you could lift your nose up towards the knee. And keeping the tighter hug, lowering back down onto the ground. Letting your left arm fall away from the body, the right hand upon your knee, and guide the knee across the body as you're breathing out. Aim here is the same. Keep both shoulders on the floor, more so than concentrating on where the knee is going or not. You may turn the head though, and allow 2 deep breaths in and out of your nose. Once completed, rolling again onto the back, where you place your left foot back down onto the ground. If both arms and shoulders are feeling good, reach them over the head, push into your left foot, roll over onto your right hand side. Maybe both arms are fully extended. As you extend your whole body, starting to bring the hips forward, arching a little bit into the back, finding a light back bend lying on your side. Then swing your upper arm down the body, bend your upper knee. If it's available to you, take a hold of the foot. If you're just bending the knee, it's really the same. You can touch your knees back together. Moving with your hips back to the front, while the foot might move back into the hand. Or you could slide your knee back if the foot is out of reach. Hold here. Foot into hand or knee back, hips forwards. Then straightening out your upper leg. Maybe the arms reach back up over the heads. And returning once more into that arch of the banana shape. Then light jelly on a plate, flop down onto your back. You might step your feet once again to the ground as you arrive here. You might also readjust your body on the mat. Then you could bring both knees to the chest, giving them both a hug and a squeeze in. Now moving both sides simultaneously, move them slightly away as you inhale. And then hug the knees in even more tightly on the exhale. So knees moving away, Panasana, and we're hugging them back in on the out breath. Inhaling, arms might lengthen as you guide your knees away. On the out breath, hugging the knees in more tightly. If you feel you would like to extend that movement, tap your toes to the ground, reach your arms over the head as you inhale, and then hug the knees back to the chest on the exhale. So toes tapping down and arms moving up over the head or sticking with the previous version. Knees in any version hugging into the chest. So breathe in, lengthen. On your out breaths, maybe adding a lift off the nose to the knees now, and an option to go for 2 more. Keeping the knees hugged in. Let your head lower, other words aren't coming. And keep the knees really tightly squashed into the chest. You might then choose to rock a little bit from side to side here. Maybe rocking a few times forward and backwards. As you come up into a seated position, and then roll over onto your hands and knees. With a kneeling position, you might like some cushioning under the knees, unless your surface is as soft as mine here. The hands, they're coming forward a lot more than underneath the shoulders, but do spread your fingers out. Want to breath in then, create a big wave of your spine and begin to lean your hips forward. A kneeling plank for us to enjoy as you use your arms strongly and bring space between the shoulder blades and actively take your tailbone and draw it in the direction of your heels. Breathing in. On the exhale, keeping your elbows bent and slowly lower down onto the front of the body. Placing your legs either together or at a maximum hip distance. Grounding through the tops of the feet. Let your elbows spread out like so onto the floor either side of your mat. The forehead is resting down. And the bend of the elbow, you bring your thumbs now in alignment with your eyes. With a breath in, use your hands, roll up through the spine, lift your elbows, pull the elbows underneath the shoulders, and come to rest here. If you now notice this back bend doesn't suit you, slide your arms further away from you or in front of you. If you can hold here with me, ground through the tops of the feet so the knees might gently come off the floor. Then press your pubic bone into the mat and let your sternum shine forward. You might even close your eyes for this Sphinx pose. Keeping your shoulders here easy. If there's too much weight on the forearms, slide them a little bit forward. Reduce the angle of the back bend. See if you can manage to direct the breath more towards chest and lower ribs than into the belly to keep stability. One more full deep breath. When completed, let your elbows slide back out. Lower the forehead down to the mat and bring your hands back underneath your shoulders. With the inhalation then, come up onto all fours and please take your time. You can step the knees in a little. You can find some squared off movements as you try to get your buttocks a bit closer towards the heels. In this position, if it's easy for you to place the forehead down, you could do so and even extend your arms. If that feels difficult today, you can of course use a block, or you might place your head into your hands. There's an option here to close the eyes. And maybe enjoying the exploration of those opposites. The back bend, followed by a gentle forward fold. The impact in whatever sense that might have had on your back, on your spine. Releasing your hands from your head, and for everyone to slide the arms forward, fingers are spread out. With a breath in, lift your hips away from your heels. If this is fine for you, you can stay there or tuck the toes under and lift the knees, coming into downward facing dog. Please move this down dog initially. See where it takes you. How does that feel when you're moving the down dog a little? And then trying to find a still place. If that's not possible, please keep moving. No problem. If you can find a still place, soften your knees. And then stretch your tailbone up as high as it could go. Now walk your hands backwards and bring them in the direction of your feet. So you end up at the back end of the mat in a hanging, standing forward bend. A long outburst from here to uncurl the spine, a vertebra at a time. No need to rush, and will assist us with the sensation of groundedness. Let's shrug the shoulders back and turn the palms of the hands to face towards the front. I will change my position so you can see me better. There's no need for you to do so. I encourage you to stand at the back end of the mat and maybe use that front short edge of the mat in front of you as you're gazing or anchoring point for the drishti. With the breath in, let's reach our arms all the way up over the head, and you might like to touch your fingertips together, both arms. Then maybe dropping the right arm as you breathe out for a side bend. On the inhale, lifting both arms. On the out breath, bring your hands to the heart, bend your knees and hips for a chair pose. Pushing down into the feet, circle your arms out and up, inhaling. It's the left arm that falls now, right arm extends over the head for another side bend. On the in-breath, lifting both arms over the head. Hands to heart, bent knees and hips, chair pose. Pushing down into the feet, reaching both arms up, breathing in. Right arm is falling again. We're aiming here for a short hold. So you might like to reach with the lower fingers towards the floor and with the upper fingers out and away to the side. So that both arms are very actively stretching into length. Inhaling, lifting both arms back up. Hands to heart, chair pose. Use the ground underneath your feet, inhaling, lifting both arms up. It's left arm now that falls, right arm extending over the head. And as we hold here shortly as well, you might reach again with your fingertips actively down to the floor and actively across to the other side. Breath in, lifting both arms up. Exhaling, chair pose. Inhaling, pushing down into the feet, lifting both arms up again. This time, open the arms, tilt, and an option to lift your left foot off the ground for a star pose. Pointing out through the feet, spreading your fingers, smiling hard. Breathe in. On the out breath, touch your hands, sink down into a chair pose. We're pushing into the feet, lifting both arms up, inhaling. And then opening the arms out to the other side. And you might like to peel your right foot off the ground. Arms reaching out at shoulder height. Please spread your fingers out. Smile if you can. Hold body strong in the start posture. And on the out breath, step the foot back down. Touch your hands, sinking into chair pose. Now, I'd love you to hold the chair. However, it doesn't have to be particularly low or high. What I'd ask you to try is to have an even weight bearing across the soles of your feet, to engage the lower abs in the sense of mula bandha, so that zipper that we pull in on that tight pair of jeans, but leaving your sitting bones wide open so the glutes are more or less engaged properly, but not overly tight. You could, from here, good foundation, extend your arms forward. If your shoulder's feeling a bit challenged, it might be possible to turn the palms upwards. If you prefer the arms a bit higher, you might bring them all the way around your ears. In that case, your palms would be facing. Notice how when you're changing the arm position, there's a different sense of weight bearing through your upper body, and then decide if you like that or you don't, and returning to a previous shape. Now breathing in deeply, have a sigh, and just lean all the way over your leg. Ragdoll position as a forward fold, the whole upper body at ease. You might even come into a little sway here if movement suits you better than stillness in the body. And then starting to walk the hands back into a downward facing dog. Take another pause, but you're welcome to drop the knees down if required. And use this downward facing dog to aim for a more neutral spine. So the soft bend in your knees for the lower back curve, the rolling open of the shoulders for the broadness in the upper back. And then start to walk with your feet to the front end of the mat now, where you might again just end in a ragdoll hanging forward bend. On an out breath, then uncurling the spine, vertebra at a time. Give the shoulders a lift and a shrug down. And maybe placing the hands upon the pelvis. So while you are standing here towards the front short edge of the mat, lifting your right knee up. And then stepping the foot quite far back. So you're turning the body towards the long side of the mat from here. So the stance matching the length side of the mat. So it's a bit wider. You could draw the back heel, your right heel, towards the back end of the mat, the front toes towards the front side of the mat. When you begin to bend your front knee, see where it goes. If it easily goes way beyond your ankle joint, widen your stance. If the leg is a little bit behind, that's no problem. You could keep your stance if it's comfortable. Pull the feet a little bit in and take a breath to raise both arms up to shoulder height. As you do though, bring the gaze forward over your front hand fingertips. Now, I'd ask you to really pull the feet inwards, gaining the lift from the lower body, and radiating up in a tall, proud standing position. Now, oftentimes the tight point here are your shoulders. So maybe softening the elbows ever so slightly, but maintaining a sense of strength throughout the arm. So the little bit of softness can actually help, but the strength in the rest of the limb is still there. While you breathe in here, and on your out breath, you could lean this forearm down to the thigh and extend the right arm to the ceiling, or you could copy me and place the right hand into the side of the waist for side angle posture. Some of you might like to extend the lower arm. If you do, keep your hand or arm to the inside of the knee. And it might be worth a look down to the knee. If your knee is falling inwards, you might at least momentarily place the hand there and build some resistance so that you can hold knee against your hand. Let's use the weight in the front foot and take a breath in to lift both arms over the head, with the out breath turning both sides, toes to face towards the long side of the mat. You might now turn away from the screen, doesn't matter. The right toes are turning now to the back side of the mat, and the left heel is turning to the other side. Do the same here. Take your time and bend your front knee. See where it goes on this side. Your stance might be a little bit different here. For me, it could be a tad bit wider on this side. Again, here, if the knee is beyond the ankle, please widen your stance. Otherwise, if it's okay, you can keep it. Taking your arms back out to shoulder height on both sides and beginning to look along the front hand's fingertips. Now your feet are still drawing gently in towards each other to build a good foundational strength, but that is sthira. Now in the upper body, we need a bit of ease. So while I could see that your shoulders are lifting a little, maybe it's time to soften the elbows again. Your gaze is soft but steady at that point in front, where you would have your place to go to. Now taking a breath in here, and with your out breath, beginning to lean the body forward. You might place your forearm to the thigh. You could extend the other arm towards the ceiling, or you could start with the hand in the side of the waist and the shoulder rolling back. While I said you might lean there, I've just done a very careful movement, and it is more so my wrist that is resting there. If you prefer the lower arm to be long, or it's possible for you to hold, you might guide your hand, wrist to the inside of the knee and create a little bit of tension there to hold that in place. Keep the length of your spine. Beautiful. Let's push down into the foot. Take a breath in. Lift your arms up, turn your toes forward. And with the out breath, releasing the arms by the sides. Let's step back towards the short front side of the mat. I will change my positioning again so you can see me from the front. We will bring the hands to the hips once more. You might lift your left knee this time to begin with, and stepping the foot far down the mat. Now, with that wider stance, if you preferred, you could lower your back knee to the mat, and you can do so at any time. If your shoulders, arms are great, breathe in and reach them up over the head. The palms of your hands will be facing each other here, so then let your shoulders be easy again. There could be once more that subtle bend in the elbows that might get you there. But there's still energy up through the fingers. So the hands, the fingers, both are very active. Now, different options for different bodily conditions. You might keep the back heel off the floor, or you might ground the whole back foot, which I will be demonstrating today. If I do that, I've got a good gap between the feet here, so about hip distance apart. And my back foot, as I grounded it from the lunge, is in a deep angle, so facing a little bit out to the side, but more so forward. Let's breathe in and reach up here. With the out breath, draw the hands down to the heart and lean forward into a twist. Now, if you now notice back foot isn't quite right, choose a different option. You might lean all the way forward, and some of you might be able to place the elbow down onto the front thigh, or even to the outside of the knee. Now, wherever you're going, apply a little bit of pressure. If it's outside of knee, maybe even against each other, and see if you can lengthen your spine forward as some of your backs are beginning to round. So rather doing a little bit less here and keeping the length of the twist. For Parivrtta Parshvakonasana, the revolved side angle pose. Let's lift back up, a heel coming up, arms coming up, and your hands might come to rest on the thigh as you step the foot forward, coming back to hands on hips. We've got another side. So now we're lifting the right knee and taking a good big step back on the mat. You might prepare yourselves already with a hip distance between your feet. The back knee can soften here. And there's an option to reach your arms up over the head. Same here, the palms will be facing each other. The shoulders can soften or relax a little bit downwards, but you're keeping your fingers active. Your gazing point forward is perfect, but there's the alternative of challenging your balance and looking upwards. Taking another deep breath. With the out breath, you might like to ground your back foot to the floor. Do the same here. If you ground your heel, keep a really deep angle of the toes pointing diagonally forward and a hip distance between the feet. Inhaling there. And then with your out breath, draw the hands into heart center and start to lean the body forward, maintaining a long spine and twisting. If that feels good, you may lean a little bit forward and down. If you're getting something against the elbow, your elbow is resting against something, create a bit of pressure. If not, that's perfectly fine. Maintaining a little twist here. And if the twist doesn't feel good with the foot grounded, you might lift the heel of that foot again. Deep breaths to hold. As you push the back heel off the mat, reaching the arms up on a breath in. On the out breath, bring the hands to the thigh, step the foot forward, land in a mountain pose. So a simple stance and yet quite complex on both of your feet. Leave the shoulders shrugged back, palms of the hands open, eyes might be closed. And the next point is to let the knees soften a little so the tension is released from lower back and pelvic area. Then simply stand and develop a deep, full in-breath and long, slow out-breath. Most postures so far were opposites. We practiced them on one side and then on the other. Some were even turning and twisting the body. If you like to practice with me, you might gently open your eyes and take a block. A piece of furniture in front of you will do as well. So for this one, I will turn myself sideways But I would love you to still imagine that I'm standing there, the front side of the mat. I will place my block into my right hand. Then lean forward and bring the block down away from the foot, but in line with the toes. The other hand I will place into the side of the waist. Option now to slide the left leg back or to lift the left foot off the floor. If you do, you might flex that foot, turn your toes open, the hips, then the shoulder. You might like to simply stay here and keep your gaze down, Ardha Chandrasana, or you might extend your left arm towards the ceiling. Beautiful. Let's swing the arm back and down, landing the feet next to each other. Without further ado, we will change sides here. So taking your block into the left hand, same here, keep quite a gap between your toes and the block, but in alignment. Other hand can start at the side of the waist, and you can choose to slide the right foot back or lift the foot. If you do, please flex it. Start to open your hips, your shoulders, and maybe extending the arm up if you wish. But that's the last point. Once you've found balance, maybe lifting the arm up. Right. Let's bring the hand back down, the foot back down, and return to face our block. Now, I'd ask you to keep the block where it is. Bring still your left hand onto the block, the right hand back into the side of the waist, maintaining some legs in the spine, and I've just bent my knees to make that more accessible for myself. Then I will lift my left leg up. So the spine is here leaning forward, or you could leave your left big toes on the floor. This could be brilliant, or you could roll your right shoulder back again for a revolved half moon. If any of you would dare, you could even extend your right arm. Not usually my focus in the twisted half moon. I'm more about lengthening spine forward and the turn in the spine to challenge the balance. Let's release that into a full ragdoll position. Allow yourself a breath, maybe a little rocking over the feet. Before we come to the other side, so you might like to bring your block over front of your right toes into your right hand. The other hand can go to the side of the waist. Now, you might like to bend your knees to lengthen the spine. And you could then start to slide the right foot back, maybe even lifting it off the floor. Same here, perfect to stay here. Toes, hips pointing down, gaze is down, spine is long. But you could also roll the left shoulder back and try and twist this half moon. Just noticing what's for you, shoulder rolling back if that is your turn. Beautiful. Let's soften that back down into a solid ragdoll position. Let yourself just hang down towards the mat. For an out breath, uncurl your spine, rolling up to a standing position. Take a big reach up with both of your arms, Urdhva Hastasana, or even a slight standing back bend, similar to our banana shape lying on the side of the body. Bending your knees, have a sigh, return to a forward bend. Then let's bend the knees and come down onto the mat. As usual, please gather the items around you that you might need later. It's always beneficial to have a block by the side. especially for this practice now. So if you have the chance to roll up the end of the mat, that might be a good seated support, or popping a blanket underneath. Let's widen our legs out. See if you can take a little walk across the sitting bones. Maybe if you're sitting on the rolled up mat or the blanket, come to the front edge. Feel a little tilt happening here. Place your hands down, arms extended between your legs, touching the inside of the legs. Flex your feet so the toes are starting to shine up to the ceiling. A minor detail that you might not see on your screen is that my knees are currently bent, a little at least. So I create a bit of pressure here with my hands or arms into the inner thighs and the inner thighs into the hands, just to help me lift up through the spine. I'd ask you with a long spine to drop back to your sitting bones, as if you never wanted to fold forward. Take a deep breath here, grounded through the sitting bones. And then start to reach your hands or arms along the inside of your legs. Try and maintain some of the straightness or length of your spine as you move forward. After a while, you might bring your hands more towards the center. You could keep swaying a little. See how that feels for you. Your knees can always be bent. And if you prefer, they could also be straightening out. You might choose to keep moving and swaying through the whole hold of this shape, or you might choose to bring in quiet when you reach a point where the hands won't go anywhere. Surrendering yourself into the forward fold. The upper body might surrender. Your legs are still switched on, the feet still in a flexion, directing the stretch to where we want it to be in this shape. Maybe time to start lengthening the exhalation in relation to your in-breath. Maybe even trying to have double the length of an out-breath in comparison to the inhalation. Letting yourself deepen that posture with the guidance of your breath. Let's take the hands back out as wide as the legs. Lowering your right forearm to the inside of the right leg and taking a breath to swing the left arm over the head. You can look forward or down, but you could also choose to look up, the little chin tuck as we reach a bit into the side of the body. Then rolling the upper arm and shoulder in, swing it to the other side, bend the elbow to the ground, and then take your right arm in a big swing over the head, turning open towards the leg. Same options with your gaze. If you do choose to look up, have a little chin tuck here, creating some space in your side. Feet are still flexed, building the foundation of the seat. And then rolling your arm and shoulder forward, beginning to sway again as you return into a seated position. You might like to help your legs to bring your feet down onto the ground. We don't need any traction or any help from the feet once we're lying down. So if you feel cold today, you might at this point pop your socks on and prepare anything else, such as blankets and cushions. We'll meet again lying on the back with a block nearby. So no need to rush to this place, maybe settling yourself in, taking little wiggles through the shoulders, hips and back. And then take your block and place that underneath the left foot so that the knee is in a comfortable bend. Lifting the right leg up. Taking a hold behind the leg and actively moving your heel upwards. On the next out breath, draw the leg in towards your body. I've just made little micro adjustments. As I pulled the leg in, I noticed that the right side of the buttocks was moving inwards as well. You might notice a similar sensation. See if you can ground the back evenly, even down to the tailbone, and then hug the leg in from there. So there might be a little bit of resistance towards the ground, providing you with a slightly deeper stretch. If you prefer, on the next out breath, lifting your upper body, nose towards the knee, and for some you might reach your hands a little bit higher. Still, if you maintain a sense of the groundedness through the hip, you might find that is quite an active stretch here. Maybe bringing your head back down and the leg in a bit closer. Try to soften back through the shoulders. Then bending the right knee, give it a little squeeze into the chest. You could just push with your left foot the block to the right, place the left foot onto the mat and find the block underneath your right foot. Place it into a position so the bend of the knee and the right side is comfortable. Then lifting the left leg up. Again, please take a hold behind the leg and actively flex the foot towards the ceiling. On an out breath, begin to draw the leg in towards the body. There's nothing wrong with the hip coming up a bit, but to work with strength and flexibility, you might actually ground that side of the hip to the floor, keeping the active flexion of the foot and hugging the leg in. Next, exhale the chance to lift the upper body, nose towards knee, and maybe reaching the hands up higher, maintaining the flexion in your foot. You could then carefully lower the upper body, taking the deeper stretch with you, or releasing that slightly. Shoulders soften. And then bring your left knee back into a bend. Give it a loving squeeze in towards you. And then landing both feet onto the ground. You could do it easy and use your right foot to just push the block away from the mat. A suggestion here to lengthen both legs out, as well as both arms over the head, and have a full body stretch. Find length down to the toes, squeeze the buttocks, maybe the hips even coming a little bit off the mat. And then a breath out as you soften into relaxation pose. So if I was to relax here, I've just opened my legs out, toes rolling out, arms roll away from the body and palms are facing up. But you could also slide some cushioning underneath the knee or just bend the knees for comfort in your back. If you do that, step the feet to mat distance and let your knees drop inwards. Lengthen the spine all the way up to the crown of the head, aligning your nose with your navel. Taking a deep, full breath in. And have a soft, long sigh out to really drop to the mat. Finding that place of opposites again. The comfort and support of the hard floor underneath. The space that surrounds you, providing you with safety, gentle touch of air closing. Return to the awareness that your in-breath feels so very different to your out-breath. And just like most opposites, they do come in pairs. As much as we might enjoy the in-breath more than the out-breath, or the floor more than the space, currently and usually we're dealing with the opposites. There's joy and there's sadness. So while you're resting here, assured that these opposites are present, let your awareness travel all the way down to your right foot. Then become aware of your left foot. Your right hand, your left hand. Your right hip, your left hip. Right shoulder, left shoulder. Right side of the brain, left side of the brain. And yet there's a center line that you might follow right down into your heart center. Allowing yourself to rest at heart center, from which everything extends outward into opposites, and even opposites within your own heart, the right and the left. The card that I drew for our practice today has the name City Sunset. Sunset is one of the few times, it says on the card, of the day when a big city feels calm. It's usually quite loud and busy. If you live in a city, reflect on the quiet and solitude you can find within it. No matter where you live, there are spots that are silent, lush, and peaceful. Think about what those places are for you, even if they are in your home. And seek them out, and the hullabaloo of life feels chaotic. As you experience the opposites right here on the mat, it might be an inspiration to seek the opposites throughout your day or the week. Focusing on the opposing sensation of in and out breaths as you deepen your breathing. Maybe extending yourself or moving the body. Before, you might like to join me in a seated position. You could choose a support underneath your sitting bones. When you come back to sit, place your arms extended out to each side with the fingertips touching the earth. Dropping even your tailbone down towards the ground. With that, centering yourself in your seat. As we touch the ground, stability. We reach all the way up into the space with a deep breath in. And then center the hands down the midline, coming through the third eye point, the lips, the throat, and then touching at heart center. The universal sound of Om is something that is in itself complete and whole. So let's chant 3 rounds of it. No opposites required, just relaxing into the sound and the vibrations. Let's inhale for the first round. The gentle bow, extending to each other. Namaste.